Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in to VMAP sessions.
Hi everyone. It's 7:30 and we're actually waiting for our host tonight, who is Eugene. Hi, ano pala eh. Eugene, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Take it away.
Okay. Just wait a bit. Okay, everyone. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, so welcome to our 10th, tama, diba? 10th Wednesday Mapa Time session. And today we'll be talking about QGIS, OpenStreetMap, and the OpenHazardsPH project. So again, as before, this session is recorded and live streamed to YouTube. And by attending this session, you allow us to reproduce, adapt, publish, display, distribute, and creative derivative works of any of your public interactions. This includes your audio, chats, screen shares, etc. So all information and content are provided as is and without warranties of any kind. So all views, thoughts, ideas, and opinions expressed by participants are personal and not necessarily shared, supported, or endorsed by the organizations and initiatives associated with the participants or mentioned herein. So if you enable your camera or screen sharing, take the necessary precautions to safeguard your private and personal information. So don't unnecessarily share too much information. So as always, we have our code of conduct because we want to have an atmosphere free of abuse, harassment, and characterized by courtesy and respect. To that end, the organizers expect all participants to conduct themselves in a manner that establishes an atmosphere free of discriminatory practices. If you experience any harassment, you may email us at osm.pilipinas+coc@gmail.com or just DM me or Erwin. So for this session, no previous GIS or QGIS experience is required, but participants are encouraged to have at least version 3.10 of QGIS installed and running in their PCs before the session. Okay, for this session, this is organized by Mapatime Diliman, and here are the links. I think these are already posted on the chat log. I think I'll just skip this Jitsi interface. I think everyone should be familiar with this by now. So again, if you have any questions or things that you want to share to the group, You can type in the chat box, toggle your mic to speak up, or share your screen to the whole group. Again, I think this is already shared in the chat log. And for tonight's session, we will have basically three slots for tonight. There will be a 70-minute webinar on QGIS conducted by Ben Hur. Then Manning will do a 10-minute lightning talk on OpenHazardsPH. Then we'll have another 15-minute Know Your Contributor session. Then RK will have another lightning talk on Phos4GPH. We expect the whole thing to last for around 2 hours. Okay, I'll now turn the session over to Ben Hur. Is Ben Hur over here?
Yay!
Dito. Kita ba?
Kita.
Positive.
Positive naman. Yun, kailangan ko palang time mo yung sarili ko baka masyado na mahaba. Hatiin naman natin sa gitna para kay Mani. In case. Gusto niyo bang may video o wala?
Para makita yung buhok mo.
Para ba makita yung buhok ko?
Wow, long hair.
Pasensya na, dalawa. It's been more than 2 months since I've seen my barber. So, growing it out. So, thank you for inviting me and for this webinar on VMAP. Congratulations on your 10th edition or 10th iteration of VMAP. So, I'll just be talking a bit about the integrations possibly of QGIS, OSM, and the OpenHazardsPH initiative. And so, who am I? Hindi ko na kailangan gawin. I might not need to do this because most of you already know me. But for those who don't, yeah, and then you can find me at these contacts, my website, xyz, my Facebook, email, Twitter. Then the QR code works for those who want to see gusto lang ng quick link to my website. That's me. House rules, very similar. It's very similar with what was already stated as in the code of conduct. So we're open. We embrace openness and diversity. We do not tolerate harassment. Try to be as curious and inquisitive. And we mind the time. Alam ko I think we have 2 hours, but mabilis lang. 2 hours there actually. So to get things started, I would just like to talk about QGIS or as I'd like to call this presentation, why you shouldn't use QGIS. So, yeah. Ito, I always find this fascinating. So the main difference siguro that people always assume when it comes to Arc and Q or any proprietary software versus Q is the cost. Pero it's not always just the cost that's different. Just because QGIS is free and open source, or just because it doesn't cost you know, any money to download or to install, it doesn't mean it's any less as powerful as something like Arc or any other proprietary solutions out there. So what is QGIS? Basically, it's three things that define and separate it from the pack. It's free and open source software. It's cross-platform, and it's very mature and actively developed. What do we mean by this? It's FOSS, free and open source. It's free as in freedom, not just free as in free beer. So for those of us who are veterans or not new to the concept of free software or open source, we get this, that the free software does not just mean it's free beer or free as the cost. It it means the four essential freedoms of free software as elucidated by the Free Software Foundation. You have the freedom to run, the freedom to study, the freedom to distribute copies, and the freedom to distribute copies of their modified versions to others as well. So QGIS being free software complies with all these requirements or all these freedoms. Okay. And open, from the open definition, uh, basically just means that anyone can freely access, use, modify, and share for any purpose that thing, that object, that data, that application. So it's very much parallel to the Free Software Foundation's four essential freedoms. In fact, open source, if you go with the FSF, open source is a requirement for those for freedoms that were just listed down. So an open source software is any software that is licensed under a OSD, or an open source definition compliant license. Uh, QGIS is licensed under GPL version 2, General new public license version V2, as far as I know. So it's very much under the OSD. Second thing that's beautiful about QGIS is that it's cross-platform. By this, I mean it runs practically on anything. It runs on Linux, it runs on Windows, it runs on Mac, and it even runs on Android. So if you download something like Input by Lutra Consulting or QField by QField, uh, these are built on top of QGIS. Data field data gathering applications on your Android phone, or even iOS for input, for example. So it runs everywhere as compared to something like Arc that I've not I don't know, I've not seen it run on anything but Windows natively. So there's that. Lastly, Q is mature and actively developed. So it's an official project of the Open Source Geospatial Foundation, or OSGeo. Its release cycle is, some people find it a bit either too fast or complicated, but to put it simply, every few months, every 4 months, there's a new release, or LR, also known as the latest release. And for every third LR, this third LR becomes the LTR or the long-term lease. And this LTR is maintained until the next LTR is released, which is about 1 year after that. So this means that the LTR version gets bug fixes and maintenance for 1 whole year. So you can expect a stable version, semi-stable version for that one. No new features are usually backported to the LTR. In contrast to that, the LR is where new features are usually included. So if you want to get access to the newest features, if you want to see the test the newest features in Q, go with the LR or data series. Sometimes very important stuff are backported to the LTR, but the the rule is only bug fixes are uh, are put in the LTR for the length of its life, which is usually, as I've said, 1 year. So I think you can just raise your hand on if 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 you guys are familiar with the things that I'm gonna ask. How many have used QGIS? Okay. Um, who has QGIS in their laptops and PCs? Who are still using QGIS 2? Are there still users of QGIS 2? Don't be shy. Uh,
Meron
unfortunately,
pa ako.
unfortunately, QGIS 2 is dead, relatively speaking. It's reached its end of life last year, about a year ago, and has become officially unsupported. Although, yes, there are still people who are actually using it. But it is highly encouraged for those to try to migrate to QGIS 3.x. Most of the processing algorithms, the plugins, have been ported to 3, so it should be easier to migrate now. Yeah, please, lipat na tayo sa QGIS 3 kung, kung kaya. So, one of the reasons I tell people why they might not like QGIS, would be the ones. Some people don't want to spend time transitioning to new software. Um, like, especially for those of us who learn GIS at school, most of the time what we learn is Arc. Um, so when we graduate or after university, we try to use Arc as well. But yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of us have used ArcGIS, if not recently, in many years ago, many years ago. Um, I personally don't have ArcGIS on my laptop or PC, but I'm sure a lot of people out there do. Um, yeah, that this is something that's a bit common, if I do say so myself, in the Philippines. Getting legit ArcGIS is pricey, so some people find a way to sidestep that. Um, and from my experience, a lot of people still use ArcGIS for desktop. ArcMap, ArcScene, the entire ArcGIS suite for desktop. And not a lot of people are familiar with ArcGIS Pro. Are there ArcGIS Pro users in the channel? Meron ba? Meron bang familiar or have used ArcGIS Pro before? I ask because as far as Esri is concerned, uh, ArcGIS for desktop is officially dying, and most of the development right now is being focused on ArcGIS Pro. So based on Esri's own documentation, ArcGIS for desktop will be technically supported until 2025. But all new developments are being put towards ArcGIS Pro, which is their cloud-based solution, enterprise solution for GIS. So there will come a point that ArcGIS for desktop, the software being run by a lot of people, will be unsupported, and they would have to transition to ArcGIS Pro, which is the perfect time actually to start learning about Q, since you would still need new training, new learning for transitioning from Arc desktop to Pro. Why not along the way take a detour and learn QGIS 3. So that's something to think about for those users of Arc who are looking at trying to learn something new, or trying to transition to new software for sustainability din. Another reason why I often tell people why shouldn't use Q is you're like living in the early 2000s, since um, a few months ago, I'm sure Python 2 has died. It's officially reached its end of life last January. Um, but ArcGIS for desktop, a lot of it still uses 2.7, the 2.7 branch of Python for a lot of the underlying scripts. For example, ArcPy, um, and things like that. QGIS, since QGIS 3.x has transitioned into using Python 3. So that's one difference, I think. And as far as I know, the default application of ArcMap and ArcCatalog for the desktop are use 32-bit processing. So if you imagine processing large data sets with a 32-bit application, it tends to be harder than something that's natively 64-bit, like QGIS. Although it is available, ArcGIS for desktop has 64-bit processing. It's available as a separate installation. Uh, so something you have to procure again on top of the original ArcGIS for desktop that we have. So as I've said, QGIS has natively supported 64-bit processing since 2.x. So even, of course, 3.x also supports it. And then shapefiles are, most of us probably know shapefiles, and most of us probably use shapefiles to pertain to vector files in general, like saying, you know, using Coke for soft drinks and Colgate for toothpaste. Uh, uh, as ubiquitous as shapefiles are, they do hit certain limits, which sometimes could be detrimental to your use case. So, shapefile usually has a lot of sidecar files. There's a 2 gig limit for those files, upgradable to 4 gigs via an extension. But I think the biggest thing that I personally find limiting in shapefiles are maximum field names of 10 characters. So in some of my experiences, I had to use codes for the field names and have a code list beside me so that I remember what this code pertains to, and it has limited type support for data types. I think it doesn't have time or date supported. So that's if your use case needs something like that. Usually, shape files won't cut it. But if your use case doesn't that doesn't really need something uh, where it's all right to have this limitation, shape files are perfectly fine. Uh, Although QGIS and even GraphGIS has chosen to go GeoPackage by default. Uh, GeoPackage is built on top of SQLite library database, and it it you know it tries to overcome most of the limitations that shapefiles have. Although there are also a lot of there's quite a few hijinks with GeoPackages as well, especially concerning concurrent uh, concurrent users. So if you have one GeoPackage and several users accessing the GeoPackage, there are quite a bit of hijinks and issues that arise, especially on locking the database. So there's that limitation right now for GeoPackages. But it also has a lot of positives for using Q. You can save styles in GeoPackage. You can save models, your QGIS models inside the GeoPackage. You can even save your project files inside the GeoPackage. So you can just send someone a GeoPackage, and if they open it, it's as if you've taken your entire project to them. So they'll see it the way you made it in your QGIS in your computer. Yeah, QGIS and Grass, I've said they've transitioned to going GeoPackage by default for their vector files. Another thing that uh, I tell people why they shouldn't use QGIS is they like else, licenses, limitations, liabilities. Um, Arc or any proprietary software comes with proprietary licenses, and that limits what you can do with it, obviously. And proprietary licenses also expose you to license liabilities if you are caught, infringing on their rights. So piracy, non-authorized use. You can't just if you don't have an enterprise license for Q, if you have like a single user license for Arc, I mean, or any proprietary software, for example, and if you're caught, sharing that with someone that's actually against most of the time against, you know, their uh, end user license agreement, or you're infringing on their rights, so you are, if they choose to do so, liable uh, for for breaking the law. That's not the case with free and open source software. As I've said, QGIS is under getting GPL V2. It's free, and you can use it, study it, change it, share it as much as you want. Sometimes having another option aside from dependence on proprietary GIS is nice. Another thing which is sort of like a myth, is that QGIS isn't user friendly. This is sort of true when it was still 1.x and the earlier parts of the 2.x branch. But with 3.x, the user friendliness of the interface has come leaps and bounds. It's improved a lot over the years. It has a unified data source manager, so you have a single dialog window for loading all kinds of data sources from rasters, vectors, layers on the web, databases, local files, etc. So you don't have to look for uh, which button loads a raster, which button loads a vector. It's all inside the data source manager. Um, yeah, I still remember prior to 3.x, you have to click one button for a raster, one button for a vector, and stuff like that. But now, everything, databases, your web servers, your local files, your browser, all of that you can load in the data source manager. QGIS 3 also introduced multiple map canvases. Prior to it, you can only have one map canvas available at one time, but now you can have as many as you want. So usually this goes hand in hand with having a 3D view on one canvas and a 2D view on the other. Or if you just want to view multiple areas at the same time, you can do so using multiple map canvases in Q. As I've said, prior to 2.x, this wasn't the case. Prior to 3.x, this wasn't the case. It now has built-in 3D support that's continuously growing. Prior to QGIS 3, one of the main drawbacks and limitations of Q was that it did not have any native 3D support. If you wanted to do 3D in Q, you had to do it via the QGIS to 3 plugin, which uses 3JS library, which is a far cry from something like ArcScene or the other 3D uh, capabilities of other GIS. So, but now QGIS has an ever-evolving 3D built-in natively on top of it. Uh, One of the things that I like the most when you're typing on search queries, search bars, it now has autocomplete. It autocompletes almost everything. If you see something that you can type in, like I said, a search bar, uh, QGIS most of the time knows or does autocomplete for you. And um, it's also new for QGIS 3 background tasks, something that um, I think a lot of people don't notice now, take for granted. But prior to 3.x, if you run a processing task, it stays on top of your window. So you have to wait for it to finish before you can do something else. But with QGIS 3, uh, you can just have it run, and then it goes to the background and just prompts you if it succeeds or if it fails. So that's really one thing that changed uh, from 2 to 3. And then there's the locator bar uh, that's found on the bottom left corner of Q. It allows you to look for layers, processing algorithms, and a lot of other stuff on QGIS. So if you don't know where to find it, usually you can find it via the locator bar. Then you can preview map projection extents, just to make sure that you won't get the wrong projection for an area. And recently there's this in-place editing that's been made available. So back then when we do processing, or when you're doing a workflow, you have a lot of temporary files in between. But with in-place editing, some of the vector processing algorithms now allow you to uh, edit in place the vector file. So instead of like, I have a vector file, I have to clip it, and then I have to buffer, and I have to do something. So I end up with like 4 or 5 vector files. I could just do all those things on that one vector file, saving me space or RAM if I'm lodging it in my memory, for example. So that's another thing. And the ability to copy paste styles, I've always liked that one. So like you can just right click, copy a style, and paste it in another layer of the same kind. So polygon to polygon, line to line, point to point, and it copies the styles that you made for the source. So it's very useful if you have a lot of layers, or know a lot of layers, but you need them to be the same style. So just style one, copy it, highlight everything else, and then paste. Then voila, you have everything under the same styles. Um, Another reason some people, or I tell people, another myth of why you should use QGIS isn't powerful enough. I don't think that's the case. Um, if something isn't found in QGIS natively or in the core, you can always look for plugins. As of the moment, I think there are more than 500 plugins already available in Q. Um, that's not including, I think, the experimental ones. So plugins provide a lot of other capabilities to QGIS that's not natively available. In fact, getting OSM data into QGIS is done via plugin, the quick OSM plugin. And then getting base maps, for example, is also done via a plugin known as Quick Map Services. You can get SRTM data via SRTM downloader. You can get Planet data via a Planet plugin. So uh, plugins allow Q to be really powerful. It extends its functionalities a lot from its basic from the basic functionalities. Sabi nga, if it's not found in QGIS, it's probably found as a plugin. If it's not, you can always create your own plugin. Uh, so that's another beauty of being open source. If you think you have something to offer, if you think you have uh, a plugin in mind that will help other people, you are always free to 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 share. You're always free to contribute. Uh, it's under the principle of democracy. If you think it helps people, if you can do it, then do it. There's the processing toolbox and the processing modeler, also powerful tools. QGIS integrates well with other GIS like Saga, for example, and Grass. So you can use algorithms from those two GIS in Q. You can also use programming languages like Python and R inside Q. And uh, there are also other processing algorithms that uh, provide extended capabilities. White box tools, is one of those things. Them, uh, Orfeo toolbox for remote sensing. All of those things you can actually utilize their power within QGIS. So QGIS in turn becomes a very powerful component of any geospatial workflow, uh, any geospatial project you might have. Of course, then I said Python, there's PyQGIS, and the expressions engine that's ubiquitous in Q. You can use expressions in styles, you can use expressions in filters, you can even use expressions in Python. So it's actually one of the, I think, if people uh, learn about QGIS expressions, they'll see just how powerful QGIS is. And the last thing that is probably a myth is that some people think QGIS can't make beautiful maps. And I don't know why. But yun nga, as I've said countless times, sa Filipino, wala sa pana, nasa Indian. It's not the tools that make the maps. It's the map maker who do. QGIS has a lot of cartography tools that makes it you know easy for you to make beautiful maps. You can manually edit labels. And what I mean by this is you can actually move the labels freely, not just they're not just docked to say corner, center, left, right. You can move them freely anywhere. Um, you can do data-defined styling. Data overrides are also ubiquitous in Q. You can override the style. You can override most um, variables for layers, which gives you a lot of actually freedom of what you can do. And then there's draw effects, the glows, shadows for your vector layers, and then we have geometry generators, also a very powerful tool in QGIS. geometry generators allow you to, it's similar to to expressions, but it allows you to generate, by its name, to generate geometry from an existing geometry, so that you don't have to do processing. The most common example that I use here is that if I have a polygon and I want to style it, I want to get centroids, instead of running something like a centroid processing algorithm, I could just style actually the polygon to become a centroid via geometry generators. And or I can make it, I can actually make it uh, as simple as that, or as complicated as I'll style the polygon as lines that are uh, hatched, or I'll style the polygons in something like Legos. If you've seen that beautiful piece on how to make Lego style symbology in Q. And there's a new one. There's like cartoon style symbology in QGIS using geometry generators and the power of style in QGIS. Um, if you haven't seen Joshua Stevens' work, I I highly recommend it. He's a great, you know, data viz person, and I know that a lot of his work, if not all of them, are done in QGIS or free and open source stuff. So it just shows you that you don't need to be using expensive proprietary software to create beautiful maps and beautiful visualizations. That's it for the part on my introduction to Q. If you have questions, you can ask now. Um, I think I'll be giving the floor to Manning to discuss about open hazards, PH, and afterwards, maybe we can go to some hands-on exercises in Q if you want. You can go to this link. It's showing showing the steps that we'll be doing, or what we'll be doing for some hands-on exercises later. There.
Do we have questions from for Benhar?
Meron sa chat log.
Oo nga. May hindi pala ako nasabi pa na isang ayoko sa shapefiles. Anti-shapefiles. Hindi ako anti-shapefile. Pero wala rin silang they don't explicitly tell you yung topology. Hindi explicit yung topology sa shapefiles. So, for something like a network analysis na dapat topologically correct yung yung vectors mo, medyo iffy minsan. Kailangan marami kang paglilinis na gawin sometimes, especially pag manually digitized yung shapefiles na ginagamit. That's just because hindi nga siya wala explicit ng topology sa kanya.
Ganun. Native topology ba ang GeoPackage?
Hindi ko rin siya masagot. Hindi ko pa alam.
Okay.
Ang pinakamagandang gamitin sa akin for network analysis talaga would be GRASS. Kasi topology talaga topologically correct talaga yung yung way na ng pag-store ng data.
Yep.
So usually ganun. Yung maganda talaga siyang gamitin. May nangyari kasi sa akin once, gumamit ako ng network analysis ako sa Q. Tapos yung binigay sa akin na data nung ano ko ay shapefiles. Tapos parang weird yung output. Yun pala nung chinek ko ang daming mga sliver na polygon sliver na lines, mga hindi naman talaga mga nagko-cross na lines. So hindi siya nakikita as road or network nung network analysis. So ini-skip siya. So instead of like going direct to one point to another, it goes around because it can't see that the road connecting this point to that line is actually a road because it dangles or it crosses that line. So as much as possible when doing network analysis, especially with any dataset naman, we check for topology errors talaga agad.
Hi, Ben. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Ben. Si Leito.
Oo.
May question pala ako about QGIS. Ewan ko lang kung na-experience nyo to. Kapag nag-geoprocessing kayo, parating nag-e-error siya. Using shapefiles din.
Oo.
Ang ginagawa ko, nag-fix geometries ako parate. Normal lang ba yun?
May settings yung buti na lang. Naalala ko to kasi
Sorry.
marami ring ganyan. may settings
Diba?
kasi yung by default, ang alam ko yung settings niya is very strict siya when it comes to geometry errors. So may under sa settings niya, pwede mo actually i-disable yun, gawin siyang mas permissive na instead of stopping yung processing, i-skip niya lang yung mga invalid geometries. So dun sa settings mismo niya sa settings mismo ng processing. So dito sa
Pero
processing,
depende doon sa processing algorithm. May mga ibang algorithm na medyo
hindi talaga
forgiving sa geometric errors. Pero by practice, it's better to fix the geometry errors before doing any processing.
Okay. Thanks.
Pero ang gusto mo lang na wala na yung errors na yun. Pwede mong gawin mas permissive.
Oo. Hindi kasi ang weird eh. Parang every time nag-geoprocessing ako, gagawa akong bagong shapefile, tapos may error, tapos fix na naman, tapos may error na naman, tapos fix ulit. So parang, ano na ba? Ako na ba mali? So, yeah.
Pero it's not a problem of the format. It's actually what you want to get out of the geoprocessing.
Oh, sige. Okay, thank you.
Slay, may tanong ako sa'yo.
Yep.
Gaano mo kadalas gamitin ang cube?
Kakagamit ko lang kanina. Every
Hindi,
day.
compared to Arc?
To Arc? Depende sa project. Pero ngayong year, puro Q.
Okay.
Very nice.
Para on topic daw siya for tonight.
Ha?
Para on topic ka.
Oo. Okay, thank you.
Okay, there doesn't seem to be any more questions. Maning, are you ready? For the...
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I'll be presenting quickly what is the OpenHazards PH project. This is a project that was made by me and RK. So si RK Aranas from UP. So basically, it's a public repository of hazard data sa Pilipinas. So as you know, maraming mga agencies ang nagpa-publish ng geospatial data for hazards, and we decided to archive it for a number of reasons. So in this example, you can see I think this is landslide hazard, which is converted into Mapbox vector tiles. So ito yung aggregated landslide hazard na available dun sa one of the data that is available do sa OpenHazardsPH. So ano yung OpenHazardsPH? Again, it's just a repository of geospatial data. So dalawang link ang meron pwede nyong gamitin. One is yung github.com repo, which is basically used for project coordination. So kung merong hazard kayong na-identify na gusto nyong i-share, punta lang kayo doon sa OpenHazardPH repo, cut a ticket, and then maybe Arky and me can do the archiving. Second is that all the data is available in Amazon S3. So ito yung S3 bucket niya, s3.amazonaws.com openhazards.ph. So lahat ng data ay nandun sa S3 bucket. So why did we use S3 bucket? One, it's scalable. Anyone can access across the world. So medyo mabilis yung access, and at the same time redundant. So it's available in several regions ng Amazon. Okay. So ano yung meron kami ngayon do sa OpenHazardsPH? Una, yung lahat ng NOAA hazards, yung flood, landslide, and storm surge hazards na generate ng Project NOAA ay available doon. So this data is, I think, nationwide for landslide and storm surge. For flood, I'm not sure. Pero karamihan ng provinces natin ay merong available na hazard data coming from NOAA. So this is an example of the flood hazard dun sa NOAA project ang galing. Second is also related to Project NOAA, meron tayong yung tinatawag na lipad. If you're familiar with this project, this is a project na nagpalipad sila ng LiDAR. And then out of that LiDAR data ay nag-generate sila ng flood hazard, 5-year, 25-year, and 100-year flood hazard. So this is also available dun sa OpenHazardsPH for anyone to download. So compared to the flood hazards ng Project NOAA, mas high resolution itong lipad flood hazard. Pero limited yung coverage because it is only available to areas where the lipad project did this LiDAR mapping a few years back. Ito naman, very new, yung Taal Open LiDAR pre-eruption data. So nirelease part ng derivative data ng lipad ay yung DTM, DSM, and orthophoto ng mga areas na dinaanan nila ng LiDAR. And during the Taal volcanic eruption this year, they decided to release that data into the public para ma-access for recovery. So this is all nung na-release siya, pinagtulungan din namin ni RK na ilagay na rin siya sa OpenHazardsPH. Okay. So again, the OpenHazardsPH is just a repository. Parang ano lang siya. It's a thumb drive essentially available on the network where you can download the data. Wala na siyang ibang gustong gawin. Ano lang, mag-provide lang ng data kung ano yung available na pwede naming i-archive. Pero ano yung pwede nyo gawin sa data? You can do a lot of applications. Once you downloaded the data, you can do several applications. So for example, this is a demonstration of wrong spelling latest storm surge, which I created. So from the storm surge data ng NOAA, you can now visualize yung extent. This is using Mapbox GLJS. Another example is yung project ni Miko before sa Philippine Red Cross. We were able to integrate sa kanilang ArcGIS disaster portal yung mga hazard information that's coming from the OpenHazards repository. You can also do impact scenario modeling. So for example, if you are familiar with INASAFE, this is a project by the HAT OSM Indonesia. So where you can model yung potential affected areas based on hazard and other exposure information. So pag meron ka na nung hazard, you can just overlay the other information to do an estimate of how many people may be affected, ano yung kailangan gawin in response to a potential disaster. Another example which relevant doon sa presentation din ni Benhar, gumawa siya ng QGIS plugin for OpenHazardsPH. So instead of going through the download dun sa Amazon S3, yung plugin ni Benhar, i-open mo lang sa QGIS and then you select a layer or a data and automatic na i-download niya and then i-render niya na dun all within QGIS. So yun yung mga ilan lang sa mga examples. If you have other examples of using the data coming from OpenHazards, please tell us. Mag-post lang kayo ng ticket dun sa repo so that para ma-highlight din natin at makita ng mga ibang tao yung opportunities for using this data. So bakit namin ginawa to? If you notice, a lot of this data is already available on the web. So for example, yung NOAA hazards ay available sa NOAA website. Yung LIPAD hazard is available dun sa geoportal ng LIPAD. And yung Taal Open LiDAR, available din siya. Merong interface na ginawa si Marks Tupas para ma-download nyo siya. So ano yung relevance ng ginagawa namin? So una, I'll show you some use cases where it is important. So una, maraming mga government data available ngayon pero depende sa administration, pwedeng mawala. So one good example is if you're familiar with the datagov.ph, nung kulay dilaw pa siya, yung website, lahat ng geospatial data across the government agencies, nandun, pwede mong i-download. And then suddenly, biglang nawala yung portal, yung download link doon. If you visit it now, I don't know if nandun pa available pa yung mga geospatial data na available back then. Fortunately, in-archive ni RK sa GitHub. So kung meron kayong hinahanap na halimbawa geomorphological map ng Bukidnon, available yan do sa data.gov.ph/datasets sa GitHub repo ni RK. So salamat kay RK, available pa siya. Second is that when you say open data, it makes sense to make it available for anyone. So that's the prime reason why we built the OpenHazardsPH, para wala nang lahat na pwedeng mag-download. You do not need to be requesting permission to access the data. If it's open data, it should be available to anyone who wants to access that data. And third is, marami nagtatanong paano i-download siya. So halimbawa, this is one example of a thread sa, I think sa GIS Facebook group, Philippine GIS Facebook group. Nagtatanong, saan ba available yung mga flood hazard natin? At marami nagsasabi dyan, for example, si Ruby, ayan, available. I think si Benhar nagbigay rin ng advice na paano i-download dun sa GeoServer port instance ng LIPAD and so on and so forth. So ang danger is, sorry, hindi naman danger, pero what's obvious is that people want access and sometimes they either need to ask permission or they don't know how to access. So that's why we created OpenHazards para medyo lower barrier to entry. Essentially, kung alam mo yung link na available naman dun sa repo, pwede mo na siyang i-download without asking anyone for permission. So meron din nagtatanong, minsan expensive mag-host ng mga geospatial data. Isa rin sa mga parang justification ng ilang mga government agencies bakit hindi nila nagpo-provide kasi wala silang resources to manage or to serve this data. Pero sa totoo lang, if you put it in in Amazon, I'm not really endorsing Amazon, but if you put it in Amazon, mura lang siya talaga. So for example, yung expense namin for hosting the Hazards PH ay halos katumbas lang ng isang milk tea for 3 months. So kung nagbi-milk tea ka every week, once a week, sobra-sobra yon to host Open Hazards PH. That's it for my lightning talk. If you have any questions, please comment in the chat box or in the what's this activate your speaker button in.
Mukhang tahimik lahat ah. Okay, are there any questions for Mani? So everyone is silent. So we'll turn back the floor to Ben.
Okay, thank you, Ben. I need to go to a meeting. Bye.
Salamat,
Bye, guys.
Mani.
Bye, Manny. Thank you.
Tama. Kala mo lalabas eh. Na-access nyo na ba yun? No? HackMD. Yung,
Ano yan,
pero,
Ben?
yung sa HackMD na doc.
Okay.
Andun yung link ata.
Yung pinost kang URL earlier.
Oh. Dito ba? Dito. Yan. Yan pa rin.
So paano to, Ben? Are you going to demonstrate this?
Oo, medyo.
Okay.
Ano naman eh. Dito naman lahat. Yung, share ko lang yung IQ. Prepared. Hirap mag live code. Kita ba yung Q?
Yes.
Okay. So, bale yung flow nung yung flow nung susunod would just be parang integration, hindi naman totally integration, pero paano nagko-communicate, paano ginagamit, paano natin magagamit yung for example OSM data for in QGIS. There's actually a lot of ways. Yung very first would be syempre using OSM base maps and OSM derived base maps from in QGIS. So dun sa maraming ways to do it. In fact, if you install QGIS, yung fresh installation, under XYZ tiles, andun agad yung OpenStreetMap as a base map. So, by default, andun na siya. Pero you can still add a lot of other base maps. Ang isang ay si class dati, si class Carlson. Instead of using manually niya ilagay yung base maps as XYZ tiles, gumawa siya ng Python script to do it that you can find here. If you run that in Python, in the Python interface, ilo-load niya tong mga base maps na to, XYZ tiles na to in QGIS. Kung wala dito, pwede mong i-edit yung script. Yun yung maganda with open source. You can edit the script, add more. What I use. Mayroon akong version nito na wala ata, hindi ko mahanap. Pero may version ako nito na mas complete. So, andito rin yung Philippine Geoportal base map, tapos mga NAMRIA base maps na oddly enough, nasa public web servers nila. And I'm not sure kung ganun ba talaga dapat or nagkataon lang. Pero if you open some of their web applications and dive a bit sa code niya, sa JavaScript niya, andun yung links to the sources. So meron ako nun, hindi ko lang mahanap agad. And isa pang source ko for base map would be yung leaflet providers. Basically, kasi yung ginagawa mo in adding yung base maps in Q ay yung XYZ, they're tiles. So kung may gusto ka ba dito sa leaflet providers na base map, kasi tutuwa. May isang natutuwa dito. Thunder Forest. Wow, natutuwa ka dyan. Pwede mong kunin yung link sa tile layer kung hindi kailangan API key. Kailangan API key. Stamen, for example, watercolor. Pwede mong kunin yung yung link sa XYZ. And then, you can just add that to this XYZ tiles, new connection. Kung anong name niya, yung URL, Minzo Max Zone, tapos refer there. Ang weird nung naming dito, meron actually nagtanong before sa mailing list na ano ibig sabihin ng refer. Pero I think yung sinagot ay yung refer ay yung attribution kung saan nanggaling yung data. So when I add OSM-based data, lagi kong linalagay din sa refer na yung CartoDB na datasets, doon ko linalagay na derive siya sa OSM. So,
I think yan yung sa HTTP. Kasi when you're accessing tile servers, you need to specify valid HTTP referrer. Tapos yung wrong spelling yan ay artifact siya ng wrong spelling ng HTTP protocol.
Ang weird nga nung ano yun eh.
So basically ano siya? Para siyang yung user agent ng browser.
Oo. So yun. So XYZ tiles, most of this actually dito, aside from the Esri stuff, tsaka uh, sa Google stuff, puro to OSM based halos, especially Car2DB. May soft spot ako for Car2DB styles kasi ang maganda. For example, Voyager. Maganda yung Voyager. Tapos may soft spot din ako for yung mga non-labeled non-labeled na base maps. Kasi feeling ko okay yun. So, actually kahit yung no labels niya, maganda. Ang linis tingnan for base maps. So, pwede mong i-add yung OSM contributes a lot to QGIS sa base maps pa lang. Kasi ang daming base maps na pwedeng gamitin na based sa OSM data. Na very useful. And then yung next siguro na so pwede ka mag-add ng XYZ tiles. Yung another way na OSM pwede mong gamitin sa Q syempre is to download the actual vector files, actual vectors na para magamit. So that's doable via the QGIS Quick OSM na plug-in. Very useful, especially pag ako hindi ako magaling mag-overpass. Banong-bano ako mag-overpass. Promise, banong-bano ako mag-overpass. So, sobrang useful sa akin ng Quick OSM. Especially for very simple queries na gusto ko lang kunin lahat, for example. Sobrang useful niya. For example, gusto natin kunin yung roads sa isang area o kaya yung school sa isang area. Pwede natin gawin agad with Quick OSM. Yung isa pa lang gusto kong i-highlight sa Q na natutuwa ako sa kanya recently ay meron siyang concept ng spatial bookmarks. So, para siyang bookmark pero location yung binu-bookmark niya. Wala siya nito before. Hindi ko alam kung saan niya nakuha yung idea nito. Pero pwede ka ang thing niya is pwede ka mag-bookmark ng isang lugar. Tapos pwede mo lang i-click yung bookmark na yun para automatically mag-zoom sa extent na yun yung queue. Very useful kung if you work with an extent or an area na madalas. For example, I can just add a new spatial bookmark for NCR. Canvas extent, save. So kahit umalis ako, pumunta ako somewhere, dapat pag clinic ko yung NCR, babalik ako sa kanya. So very useful if you nakatulong sa mag-optimize ng workflows mo, especially if you're working with multiple datasets in multiple areas. Tapos kailangan mong tingnan kailangan mong magpalipat-lipat ng titingnan. So I have one here din sa say Coronadal area, so NCR. Pwede kong sa bookmarks lang, pwede ka akong magpalipat-lipat agad. Very recent, I think a few versions ago lang siya linagay. Tapos hindi ko siya na-appreciate dati. Until nakita ko yung power niya na pwede pala yung ganun. So yan, ang bookmark could be project-based. So kung as part of one project, or pwede rin user bookmark. So kahit anong project na QGIS na gamitin mo, yung user bookmark. Pag user bookmark siya, pwede mo siyang gamitin. So yun. So I did that kasi, for example, you want to load road tsaka school data, for example. So pwede akong nag-bookmark ako ng medyo Coronadal-ish area. I think, yes. Coronadal, medyo south, Cotabato area. And then, gusto ko, for example, mag-download ng road network dito, tsaka schools, for example. Yun yung gusto kong tingnan. bakit schools, kasi yung dahil sa mapaaralan, very complete halos yung napakaraming school dataset ng ng Philippines. So maganda siyang gamitin for demos, for analysis, and for studies, for example. So yun, going back, quick OSM plugin, quick OSM na plugin, nandito rin, nandito yung yung mukhang green na magnifying glass. Sa baba niya yung JOSM remote na hindi ko masyadong ginagamit. So, quick OSM, yun. Kung magaling ka mag-overpass, pwede kang gumawa ng overpass query mismo. Pero ako, okay na ako sa basic lang. So, for example, roads, kung mag-ano ko ng road, I would just, kung lahat, gusto ko lang lahat, highway, value, lahat ng klase ng highway na tag siguro. Tapos yung in, dito mo i-define kung ano yung ida-download mo na subset ng OSM data. So pwede siyang medyo geo-coded. So in pangalan ng village, town, city. Pwede rin around a city na ilang meters, for example. Usually ako canvas extent na lang or layer extent kung may layer akong gustong paggamitan. So canvas extent, for example. Para i-load niya lahat na within the map canvas. And then sa advanced, dito i-define mo lang din kung ano yung gusto mong kunin. So roads, mostly lines or multi-line strings at most yung kailangan. Hindi mo naman kailangan for network analysis siguro yung polygonized na roads or points na roads. Medyo weird yun. So, yan. Tapos, kailangan mo lang siyang i-run. So, run query. Kasi pwedeng show query ka muna. So, pag rinan mo siya, yung tagal ng konti, malaki yung area. A few seconds din yan pag tinatakbo ko. So, parang yung mga cooking show, may pre-baked, na ako, may pre-baked results na available. Yan. So, ganito siya. Ito, yung area. Ito yung ganda nga nung nabigla nga ako ang ganda ng road network sa dito. Well, sentro naman kasi yung Coronadal. Yan, Takurong, South Cotabato pa, Sultan Kudarat. So, meron kang highway data na road network. Tapos yung next siguro na gusto mong kunin would be so pag nag-quick OSM ka ulit, schools. Gusto mong makuha lahat ng schools. So, checking yung rules for tags and key value options sa OSM. I think amenity school yung na ginamit ko. Then pwede mo uli siyang canvas extend or layer extend kung may layer ka nga. Tapos pag rinan mo siya, ang ginamit ko pala dito instead of points ay polygons. Pwede mo rin gamitin yung points at polygons para sa ipag-combine na lang sila. Pero for simplicity, yung polygons yung kinuha ko. Kasi napansin ko na mas complete yung data sa polygons kaysa sa points. Probably because yung mga na-digitize na polygon na yun ay part ng larger program like papaaralan. So, mas complete yung data sa mga polygons kaysa dun sa mga points. So, sila na lang yung linote ko. So, if you run that query na amenity school, canvas extent, or any extent, for example, may napili kang area, NCR, or any Cavite, Albay. So, pag rinan mo siya, lalabas yung amenity schools. Hindi ganun kahalata. Ayun sila. And tulad nga ng sinabi ko kanina, yung gusto ko sa kanya ay maganda yung attribute table niya. Maraming data fields. So, as compared dun sa points. So, meron pa siya nitong population. So, yun, isa pa palang, I'm not sure kung ginagamit ng mga tao, pero sobrang dali nang mag-edit ng column sa queue para for simplicity sake. Pwede kang mag-hide, tapos kung gusto mo lang makita ay say name, operator, population. Kasi alam ko minsan, sobrang hassle tingnan yung attribute table pag sobrang dami ng columns. So, very useful yung ability na yun ng QGIS. You just right-click on one of the headers and then click Organize Column. So, pwede mo ditong i-check, uncheck yung gusto mong mag-appear or gusto mong i-hide or gusto mong i-show. So, very useful. Another very user-friendly feature ng queue na madalas ko rin gamitin. Tapos yun. So, balik tayo sa ating meron na tayong schools, meron din tayong highways. Yung next thing na gagawin natin ay we will try to clean yung highway natin. So maraming ways na to actually do topological checking, geometry, fix geometries, mga ganun. Pero ang nakita kong pinagkakatiwalaan ko, for example, is yung v.clean algorithm ng GRASS, which is itong bar na to, itong ating locator bar. So, pag nag-type ka dyan ng kahit anong command, sasabihin niya sa'yo yung kung saan siya pwedeng map. So yung v.clean ay isa sa pinaka feeling ko maayos na paglilinis ng geometry ng data. Again, GRASS algorithm siya. So if you double-click on that, papiliin ka na ano yung gusto mong linisan na dataset. So yung highways, for example. As ano yung feature type niya, pwede mo na itong bawasan. Line lang naman siya. So, line. Tapos yung cleaning tool, medyo kailangan mo ng kung nag-topology check ka na, geometry fixing, medyo gets mo na to. Pero for network analysis, usually yung kailangan mo lang naman ay break tsaka snap. So, i-break niya at intersections, tapos isi-snap niya yung i-snap niya pabalik. Para kung, for example, may dalawang lines na nagko-cross, instead of maging dalawang lines yun, magiging isang shorter line yung extra dun sa intersection, tapos tatlong other lines yung iba. So parang magiging network, magiging viable siya for something like a network analysis. Kasi pag dalawang lines yung na nagko-cross, hindi siya kino-consider as pwedeng daanan. So magkakaproblema ko with your network analysis. So itong dalawa usually, removing dangles, pwede rin, removing bridges, remove duplicates. All of this naman ay nasa readme or help ng GRASS. And then threshold kung gusto mo ng konting threshold. At usually yung defaults niya ay maayos na yung lalabas if you just use the defaults and then select snap tsaka break and then kung anong klaseng siya. Tapos if you run that, it will take some time din, especially kung marami yung data mo. Kasi lilinisin niya yung lahat eh. So for example, meron kang ilang lines, more than 2,000 lines. Medyo matagal-tagal din. Di naman sobrang tagal. May time. na kailangan. So yun nga, dahil may mga pre-baked data na ako. So ang lalabas sa'yo, ganito na lang din. So, clean. Ito na yung nalinis na data ng so titingnan nyo, mukha na talaga siyang from yung eye test, yung mga nakakonect dapat, so walang mga excess maliban dito sa mga yun, sobra. Ito wala talaga siyang connections. So, pwede mo rin yung tanggalin actually kung tayo ng iba pang parameter for cleaning, for example. Pwede matanggal yung mga walang kadugtong na roads. Yeah. So after we clean the data, if you do network analysis most of the time, yung kailangan mo na locations ay points. So usually we analyze distances between points o kaya service areas from points. So one way we can dito naka-polygon yung schools natin. So one way we can change this is just using meron na centroid na algorithm na marami actually. Maraming centroid algorithms in Q. Centroid na built-in. May centroid na saga, may polygon centroids. May centroid din yung white box tools. So almost usable naman lahat yun. So for example, schools, yung amenity schools mo, gawa ka ng centroid, tapos run mo lang siya. Yun. Most of the time, since medyo malaki-laki naman yung RAM ko, hindi naman ganun kalaki yung datasets. Pag hindi siya, pag temporary file lang siya for me, temporary layer na lang yung ginagawa ko, create temporary layer. So, sinesave niya sa memory yung data. Ang downfall nun is pag nag-crash yung QGIS or na-close or pag hindi mo na-save yung memory layer, mawawala siya sa next na pag-open mo. So, pero pwede mo siya i-save to file o pwede mo siya pasok sa PostGIS. Pero usually pag medyo temporary file, sa memory ko na lang siya lalagay. Ang workaround dun sa pagiging memory layer niya ay plugin ulit. If you're familiar, memory layer saver na plugin. So, plugins, pangalan niya ay memory layer saver. So, nagawa niyang persistent yung memory layers mo. So, instead of pag close ko ito, mawawala yung memory layers ko, maaalala niya dahil dito sa plugin na ito. So, if you want to make sure na maalala ng QGIS yung layers mo in memory, before ka mag-close, before ka mag-save, puntahan mo si memory layer saver, tapos display memory layer information. Sabihin niya sa'yo kung alin yung mga naka-store niya na memory layers. So, yun. Pag ginawa natin yung centroid, kakab na tayo ng parang ganito, school centroids. Pero sabi ko rin nga kanina, kung hindi naman siya for processing, tapos kailangan lang natin ng styling, meron namang centroid field, pero i-assume natin na walang ganyan. Pwede ka yung geometry generator na sobrang powerful. So, basically, yung geometry generator, inaalaw ko niyang mag-generate ng another geometry based on yung existing geometry ng layer. So, for example, polygon to, di ba? Gusto ko siyang maging point. So, pwede kong i-click yung point, multi-point. Tapos, based dun sa geometry ng existing layer, i-compute ko yung centroid. Tapos, i-display niya na as centroid yung polygon na pwede kong i-edit based sa kung ano man yung gusto ko. Actually, pwedeng simple marker, pwede kong palitan pa yung geometry generator, yung styling ng geometry generator. So yun, very, very powerful ang geometry generator. Pwede ko nga siyang gawing outline, pwede ko siyang gawing line na lang. Hence, so para siya magiging outline lang naman. So, pwede kong gawa ng kakaibang styling. So, yun yung geometry generators. So, madami siyang use. Yun. So, if after we do that, meron na tayong centroids tsaka cleaned road data. Now, yung built-in processing algorithm ng QGIS, yung dito sa processing toolbox or processing toolbox, Control-Alt-T. Yung built-in network analysis, ito gumagana to kahit na yung date, yung projection mo ay geographic. By that, lat long yung coordinates ng projection mo. Pero yung iba na for network analysis na algorithm like QNIT. QNIT 3 is network analysis toolbox. Once again, plug-in siya. Sobrang lakas ng plugins. QNIT 3, network analysis toolbox. Gumagana lang siya pag projected yung layer. So, most of the time, karamihan din ng network analysis algorithms kailangan nakaproject para makompute na yung distances sa meters, for example, na projected coordinate. So, one good way na laging gawin ay i-project to something projected yung ating data. So, for example, ipo-project natin yung schools tsaka yung cleaned na road network. Under siya sa vector, data management tools, reproject layer. So, under dito, merong ganyan. So, since dalawa lang naman siya, okay lang i-run natin ng target CRS, dito natin siya ipo-project. Okay lang i-run natin siya pa sa isa. Pero kung, for example, meron tayong 20 o 30 na data layers, pwede na tayo mag-batch process. So, batch process tayo, for example, select from open layers, select natin itong lahat. And then, napansin ko lang with batch processing, medyo hindi siya gumagana pag sa memory mo i-save yung layer. So, kailangan mo talagang mag-specify ng output. So, pwede kang maglagay ng output, tapos pwede mong sabihin na i-autofill na lang yan. So, magiging based dun sa pangalan, for example, magiging underscore projected. Ganyan. Tapos, pag rinan mo to, lahat yan, i-reproject niya. So, batch processing, isa rin sa mga powerful na tools na meron available sa Q. So, for example, naranan natin siya na reproject. Meron na tayong school centroids na naka-project, tapos roads na naka-project din. Mas by this time, kung maayos yung projection, maayos yung network data, pwede na tayong gumawa ng simpleng network analysis. So, for example, if we go to network analysis, yung native network analysis processing, shortest path tayo. Ang hihingi niya sa iyo would be yung network layer. So, for this, siya yung roads 3857. Yung rin-project natin na roads. Path type to calculate, dalawa lang yan lagi. It's either the shortest or the fastest. Kasi sometimes yung shortest, hindi yun yung fastest. At sometimes hindi. Equal lang to pag walang ibang variables involved. Pero sa network analysis, syempre alam natin there are several variables. So, shortest, click mo yung start point. So, somewhere here. Endpoint. Here. Tapos yun, may advanced parameters kung may data doon yung network mo. So, kung merong field for direction, one way lang yung data, yung road na to, pwede nating ilagay doon. Ano yung value for forward, backward direction, both direction. By default, both direction siya. Kung may speed field ka, so kung meron kang field na kung ano yung speed ng ng car or ng kung sino mang naglalakad, tumatakbo, nagbabike, dun sa line na yun, pwede natin ilagay din dito. So, medyo wala naman. Pero kung meron tayo, pwede natin gamitin dyan. Or pwede tayo mag-default speed lang. Like say, 20 kilometers per hour. So, yung speed field, maganda siya kasi alam naman natin variable yung speed sa roads, hindi naman constant. So kung meron nun, mas nagiging medyo realistic yung analysis natin. Pero in the absence of it, default na lang yung gagamitin. So yun, pwede natin siyang i-run. So compute niya yung graph. So na-calculate siya ng shortest path. So ito yung na-calculate niya na shortest path. Pwede natin i-try highlight ng konti. So yun. So ito yung na-calculate ng shortest path between those 2 points. Marami pang ibang processing providers na algorithm na network analysis. Like yung QNIT, may QNIT, HQGIS, ORS tools, Open Routing Service. Ito, plugins din to, HQGIS at ORS tools, plugins din siya. Tapos mayroon din built-in yung GRAS, ng mga VNet, mga networks yan. VNet distance, VNet visibility components, salesman, traveling salesman, Yan. So ito, for example, shortest path na na-compute. Pero what if hindi naman yung shortest path yung kailangan lang natin, gusto natin service area, which is also a common question na gusto nating sagutin. So, halimbawa, gusto ko malaman yung service area nitong, select ko itong mga to. Itong schools na to, for example. Example, these schools. Gusto ko malaman yung service area nila, assuming may, or actually hindi, accessibility. Mas maganda actually yung term pala yun. Accessible ba sila? Hanggang saan sila accessible based dun sa road network natin? So, pwede natin gamitin dyan yung network analysis na like service area from layer. Pero try natin yung si QNIT. May routing din siya. Yung shortest path, point to point. Maganda palang i-test kung pareho yung lalabas sa kanila. Maybe may kaya sa inyo o maganon. So for example, gusto nating gumawa ng service area or what's known as isochrones, ISO areas. ISO areas from layer. So using all these points na sinelect natin, kukuha tayo ng isochrones. So ISO areas, polygons. Ganun ulit, very similar yung hihingin niya na value sa'yo. Vector layer representing the network, roads. Start point mo, yung school centroids, tapos selected features only. Ano yung unique field niya? And then, ayun, size of ISO area, distance or time. Pag distance yung linagay mo dito, pag distance, shortest path yung yung algorithm magagawin mo. Pag time naman, fastest path. Ngayon, yung values dito, pag distance yung kino-compute mo or yung limit, yung linilimit mo, min-maximize, meters, naka-meters to, or kung ano yung coordinates na ginagamit, ano yung ano yung coordinates na ginagamit nung CRS. So this would mean pag ito yung ginamit ko, shortest distance, yung isochrones ko would be every 500 meters until ma-reach ko yung 2.5 kilometers. But most of the time, mas useful sa service areas or sa accessibility yung fastest path, yung time optimization. So optimize mo yung time. So when doing that, the values here in ISO area size and contour interval are in seconds. So for example, we'll do a fastest path analysis, 900 seconds up to 3,600 seconds. So that's parang 15 minutes to 50 every 15 minutes na interval, I think. Fastest path, tapos yun nga, planar, yun, direction uli, forward, backward, default, speed field. Same with yung network analysis. May mga konting ano lang. So yun, gawin natin uli. Siguro 20 kilometers per hour. Tapos, so, ito yung ano natin. Basically, ang sinasagot nito ay hanggang saan yung extent ng mga schools na yon combined. Hanggang saan yung pag nag-travel ako from them, mararating ko 1 hour. In 1 hour. Parang ganun. Given na speed ko ay 20 kilometers per hour. Pag rinan natin siya, medyo mabilis naman. Ang init lang ng konti yung aking. So yun. Pag mas maraming points, mas matagal. Kasi ipoprocess niya per point. Tapos i-merge niya into one polygon or contours. Yan. So ang lalabas doon would be this. So ito yung accessibility / service area nung mga sinelect natin. Finilter ko na lang. So itong naka-highlight na yellow, ito yung service areas nila. So pwede natin i-style. Like, pwede natin i-style as graduated or even categorized. Cost level, classified. So, yan. Depende kung paano natin gustong i-style. So, yan. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yan. So, depende na sa atin kung paano natin siya gustong parang ganyan. Ito yung naaabot niya, assuming na 20 kilometers per hour yung date, yung natin, yung speed. If you want to style it differently, madami namang color ramps. Yun. Isa pa na I think not everyone uses sa queue. Ang dami niyang color ramps na hindi natin nagagamit if you're unfamiliar. If you click ito, in any ganito, sa kahit anong ganito na pag hiningan ka ng color ramp, pag click mo yung create mo yung color ramp, bibigyan ka niya ng options. So, meron siyang madaming built-in na presets, especially dito sa CPT City. Pero yung color brewer, meron siyang catalog, CPT City. At napakadaming color ramp to choose from na sometimes hindi natin ginagamit. especially if you're already working with existing data like topography. Yun. Meron ditong built specifically for SRTM, eTopo. Yun. Maraming ganun na styling na capabilities na minsan napapansin ko hindi masyadong ginagamit ng iba. I don't know why. Sayang naman. So, yun, may dito na nagkaroon tayo ng um, parang accessibility semi-service area. Tapos, pwede natin itong gamitin for analysis. Say, for example, we have households dito na where school-going children live. Pwede natin ma-highlight kung sino yung underserved, sino yung mga households na ang layo nung kailangang lakarin kung lalakarin man nila. Especially, kung nasa Metro Manila to, bawal daw yung jeep tsaka bus sa GCQ. Yung mga ganung bagay. Those kinds of analysis pwede natin tingnan. So, siguro yun for network analysis. May questions ba? Ay, yung dark mode, night mapping. Night mapping yung dark mode. Under settings, general theme. Settings, general theme, night mapping. Kung may questions, okay na. Or kung ginagawa niyo yung nasa HackMD, go lang. Pero with sa network analysis with Q and OSM, usually yun yung mga simple workflows na pwedeng gamitin. Medyo ni-skip ko na yung hazard mapping kasi medyo madali na lang naman na mention na rin naman ni Maning yung plug-in. So may browser script pala na in case ayaw mong gamitin yung plug-in na ako rin gumawa yung plug-in. At tapos gamitin mo lang yung browser script. Ang gagawin niya, i-load niya directly sa browser panel under WMS yung OpenHazardsPH data ni Maning. So, yun. Kung may questions, G lang.
Okay, mukhang wala namang questions. Or may questions ba? Okay, walang questions. So, thanks Benhur for that demonstration ng network analysis ng schools in Coronadal and Tacorong. Anyway, kung wala nang pahabol, I think yung next session natin slot natin ay yung lightning talk ni Arky.
Yay!
Arky, ready ka na? Okay.
Hello. Narinig niya ako? Kita
Yes.
na ba yung ano? Ayan, sige, start ka lang ha. Ayan. Hi. So I'll be talking about mapping forums. So, sa mga hindi pa nakakilala sa akin, hi, I'm RK. So, I'm at Ruko on Twitter. So, I'm with Stamina for Space, GRASP. So, kami yung operations team ng Diwata Satellites. Tapos, I'm also with Maptime Diliman. Kami ni Ben, Cham, Ian. Tapos, I'm also with Phosphor-G, PH. So, sinamaning si Sir Marx. So, I'll be talking about having a place for civilized discussions about maps. So, kasi saan ba tayo nag-usap right now? So, well, I think we used to have for a Facebook group, but Facebook is right now sobrang toxic na niya. Tapos, mga political discussions, mga DDS at Dilawan.
Yes.
So, ayan. So, tsaka if you're on Facebook, halo-halo na lahat yan. So, parang ka lang, para siyang malaking mall, tapos may malaking stall ka lang doon. So, may maliit ka lang na stall. So, parang extra ka lang doon. So, tapos, may naman tayo, especially sa OSMPH, may chat group sa Telegram. So, I mean, I have nothing against Telegram. Telegram is nice. Yung nga lang doon sa chats, siya, masyado siyang ephemeral, di ba? So, pag nakamiss ka ng ilang araw, pagbalik mo, wala. Madugong backread yan. So, magandang chat for quick discussions, pero you have to be there all the time. Pag wala ka, medyo maghirap maghabol. So, I'm not dissing yung current methods. This is meant to complement yung existing channels. So, why forums? Kasi sometimes you want to talk in paragraphs, hindi lang sentences, hindi lang words, hindi choppy discussions. Yung gusto mong medyo mas matagal na discussions. So, also async, especially ngayong work from home tayong lahat. Minsan, I like ito, maganda rin naman yung ngayon, yung mga discussions natin on yung mga meetups, real-time siya. Pero most discussions, kasi kanya-kanyang pace tayo, iba't ibang times, iba't ibang situations. So maganda rin yung asynchronous communication. So I think mga evergreen na discussions, I mean like things na medyo, you can look back at it, tapos nandun pa rin siya or lalabas siya sa Google search. So, ayun. So, ito yung propose kong as group, yung site siya. So, ito yung URL niya, maps.usapan.xyz. So, it's made with Discourse. Discourse is an open source project na forum platform. If you're familiar sa mga lumang forum platforms, yung mga PHPBB, mga InVision. So, yung Discourse is just the latest iteration ng mga ganong forum. So, it runs on Ruby on Rails, saka Ember. I mean, that's beside the point, I guess. So nandito siya ngayon. If you can see, I've already set it up already actually. So it would be, I would invite everyone to join. Right now, pa siya, email nga lang right now yung registration. So yan, you have to open an account. Pero automatic naman yung wala namang approvals pa. Tapos, also right now, yung categories ay yung, may mapa time category, may OSM, Phosphor-G, tapos pista ng mapa, organizers. So, may isang thread na kami dito ng Erwin, yung map.org, yung plano, yung co-op. So, as you can see, medyo mahaba yung discussion. So, tapos may proper, quoting support. So, if you talk, you can quote yung segments ng sinabi nila, so you can reply to it. May likes din siya, yung mga yan. Tapos so actually siya, forum software talaga siya. So yung right now yung mga members dito ay nandiyan sila. So ayun, open siya to everyone. Would be nice kung people will come. Tapos since it's not meant to replace yung it's meant to complement yung existing systems. Actually yun lang for now. Thank you for your time. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, are there
Sorry.
questions?
Okay na. If you have any questions, ano?
Yeah, are there any questions?
Hmm.
Also, if you want invitation dun sa discourse na group ni Arky, may link ba tayo?
Actually, you can just go to the site to sign up. You know, it's a maps.usapan.xyz. So, wait. Yeah, I think I can make an invitation link din para.
Okay,
So,
tapos may question si Lay. May app daw ba ang discourse?
Lay, may ano siya, Lay, may Android app siya. Tsaka iPhone app. Though mobile friendly din siya. So actually you can just use yung mobile browser. But if you must have an app, may app siya. Invitation.
I have a question.
Hello? Yes?
Is there any moderation?
Ano? Sorry.
Is there any moderation?
Moderation? May moderation siya. Tapos sa discourse din pala may ano siya, may concept siya ng trust level. So aside from actual moderators, may as you spend more time sa site, tumataas yung trust level mo. So tumataas yung kaya mong gawin. So may mga basic members, hindi sila makakagawa you can just post. May mga regular members, tapos so pwede na silang mag-edit ng mga ano. Tapos if you're there long enough, pwede kang parang meta moderator ka na rin, nakaka-edit ka na. Pero may explicit moderators din. So if we can, right now yung community kami-kami pala naman. So if kung magkaka-community na tayo, we can decide din kung ano yung code of conduct natin. Kung like say, bawal DDS, ganun, or whatever. Pero yeah, may moderation siya. I think yun yung sa selling point niya against Facebook. Like, you can just moderate yung ganun, or bawal flat earther dito, mga ganun. Mga anti-vaxxer, bawal. So, ayun, may moderation siya. So, may sign up link. If you can see yung screen, may ano naman siya. You can sign up. I can invite people or you can sign up. Open naman siya. Ngayon. Any other questions? So, yun
Hi. Good evening. Narinig ba ako?
Yeah,
No.
yes.
Okay, good. So, is it possible na yung source code nito ay ma-publish sa GitHub or similar site? Or wala pa yan sa plano?
Hindi. This is an existing project. So, hindi ko siya ginawa from scratch. So, ano siya? Discord siya. So, it's an open source project. It's already on GitHub.
Okay. Thank you
para
very
siyang
much.
Para siyang WordPress but for forums. Di ba yung WordPress for blogs? Siya yung for forums.
Cool.
Yun yung goal nila.
Okay, salamat po.
Sige. So, yeah. Any questions? I think wala nang questions. So if you have any questions, you can just ask sa forums. So, ayun, thank you.
RA,
Yes, Erwin.
may lightning talk about Phosphor-G.
Ano?
May lightning talk about Phosphor-G.
Hindi phosphor yun. Ito na yan.
Okay. Page lang pala tonight. Sige. Thank you for sharing.
Sorry. Misunderstanding ata sa topic. Close ka na to. Paano ba i-close na? Paano yan share yung screen?
Lower left.
Okay na ba?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, habang hinahanap ni RK yung kung saan ititigil yung pag-share ng screen. Ben, are you still here?
Hello, nawala si... Ay, di ba si Ben?
Yep. Nandito pa naman.
Mic test.
Test mic.
Right. So, where's Ben? Okay. Ben,
Nandito.
mic test.
Oh. Andito.
Okay. So, magandang gabi uli sa inyo lahat. Ito si Erwin. Para sa KYC session natin, Lawyer Contributor session for tonight, ang ating i-feature ay actually si Ben. Lang dito siya. Dito na siya. We will take advantage of his presence. So Ben, are you ready for your questions?
Wow naman. Dapat ba naka-video? Dapat ba naka-video?
Last week, nang hinayang si Faye na hindi nakita yung kanya mug sa video. So, feel free to share your screen if you're interested in doing it.
Sayang. Wala akong lipstick eh.
Make up.
Sayang.
Hindi ako naka-lipstick eh.
No, it's okay if you're not comfortable with it. It's okay. Optional yan. Okay,
No, sige.
let's start. So, this is called the 9x90 segment for KYC. This is basically 15 minutes for the 9 questions we have for you. So, we'll start the timer. So everyone knows. I know you've introduced yourself earlier, but could you tell us more about yourself, what you do, and how you got started in Post4G or OpenStreetMap?
Yun, right now what I'm doing is I'm trying to start or create a business using open source technologies, so provide support, create solutions for people using Phos4G and other open data technologies. How I got started, medyo serendipitous. It was, I think, 2010. I first got introduced to QGIS, but I passed it off back then as because I was still an undergrad and I was still taking GE courses. So ArcGIS yung alam ko. But before I graduated, my laptop of 5 years died on me. And then I had to buy a new one with that cheap a cheap one, and then wala siyang window, so I got stuck with Ubuntu, and then I started learning more about open source and stuff like that, and I didn't stop. So medyo serendipitous yung So I also started with Arc, as with most people. It just so happens na nag-Ubuntu ako at walang Arc doon, so I had to transition.
Okay. So, maganda rin minsan napipilitan, dahil you don't know where you end up doing.
Oh.
Okay. So, what motivates you to contribute to Post4G the way you do?
Yun, even though serendipitous yung way of how I got introduced, I really fell in love with the philosophy of openness and freedom. Medyo anti-establishment din tayo, so I really fell in love with that kind of philosophy, which is why I like contributing and advocating for Phos4G or Open Data OSM. So I think it really lowers the barrier of entry. It democratizes technology basically, and I'm all for technology democratization. Kasi if you're not as as rich or as powerful as people, the least you can do is have equal opportunities as them. Na you are provided tools that will provide you the same opportunities as them, and I think OSM, Phos4G, and open source hits that. Kaya I'm very medyo rabid ako when it comes to advocating for openness in tech and in data.
Yeah, it's not surprising to find people who share common values in these open communities, open and free and open software projects. So yung sinasabi mo you were like that before, or you have the inclination to do something because of Phosphor G, or you're attracted to the openness. Isang ano yun, common factor among people who sing to FOSS. Do you prefer to contribute in any particular way? And could you say why? To OSM or
Wala,
Phosphor G?
wala namang specific way. I try to contribute any way I can. So for
Mhm.
example, in Q, I do support it financially. I'm a sustaining member of the QGIS project. I also support yung mga um, crowdfunding for QGIS stuff and OSGeo stuff. Pero aside from that, yung other non-financial stuff like creating blog posts, sharing on social media, um, pag pag pagbibigay ng paglalagay sa OSM ng data. Wala akong masyadong specific na gustong gawin, pero as much as I can, kung saan ako pwede mag-contribute, I try to contribute.
Okay. So what do you think is the biggest misconception about Phosphor G, and how do you think it could be addressed?
May isang oras ka pa ba dyan?
Minuto ka na ba?
Mahaba yan.
Limited.
I think siguro the biggest misconception is still na it's not as viable of an option when it comes to yung real work, quote unquote real work, kasi libre siya, kasi free siya. I still remember, mamaya dun sa anecdote, yun yung sasabihin ko. Na yung kanong mentality ng iba, just sometimes just because it's free, they tend to push it aside na hindi naman binabayaran, so how good could it be?
Okay. So what do you think are the challenges of contributing to free and open geodata in the Philippines, in general, or specifically with OS?
I think in general, mas problema yung aside from awareness ng mga tao, sometimes hindi rin talaga sila interested to learn or contribute free and open geodata or OSM. Kailangan kumbaga kailangan natin himasin, or kailangan natin makuha yung buy-in nila muna before sila tumulong. We can't just go there and say, para to sa bayan, or para to sa ganito, it's for the betterment of the country. Medyo mahirap yun. And at the same time, I think we're not that mature in terms of data literacy from bottom to top, from the masses until yung mga nagli-lead sa atin, they're not as data literate as we would want them to be, siguro. So sayang. So I think that's one thing. Meron pa kasing they think may clash between open data and data privacy, when in fact dapat wala namang ganun. So may mga ganung nuances sa atin na I think hindi naman sa Pilipinas lang, pero sana ma-resolve.
Yeah, tama. Parang maraming common issues from other countries that are also happening in the Philippines. Would it be possible for you to name one personal contribution to Phosphor G that you're most proud of?
Parang wala naman. Wala pa naman akong most proud of na personal contribution. Although something siguro that I really enjoy is sharing knowledge sa community as much as I can. Minsan nagpo-flood ako minsan ng mga groups. Pero I enjoy sharing. Pag may nakita kong fun OSM, Phosphor G, open data stuff.
Okay. Dapat pala ulit-ulitin to para pa-share mo pa rin. Sige. Next, in concrete and actionable terms, how can OSM/Phosphor G in the Philippines become better?
I would go back dun sa yun sa thread mo sa discourse, I really think organizing and consolidating would help us in how we do that. It's up for decision, pero I think I'm really of the opinion that mas malaki yung pros kesa cons ng uh, organizing as an entity. Kasi siguro din, yes, right now kaya nating mag-hold ng events, pero feeling ko we would at one point or another makakahit tayo ng wall or ceiling na kailangan talaga we are legally recognized as an entity, not just in the Philippines but siguro in the grander scheme of things sa global community. Kasi malaki din na issue ngayon yung um, pagiging diverse and inclusive ng mga open communities. Diba? Weird open community sila pero may issue ng diversity tsaka inclusion. So I think mas kaya natin mag-contribute globally on that if we do if we organize and for example we become parts of or we create our own organizations na kayang i-push yung mga gusto natin gawin. So for me, yun yung next big step I think for the community is to organize ourselves.
Maraming kasama sa community na interesado in making that happen, who shares the same vision as you. So let's see how that goes. Can you name 3 local OSM or FOSS4G initiatives other than those you initiated? And briefly tell us why they come to mind.
Tatlo lang. Madaming magaganda.
Sorry.
Oh. Syempre I'd commend Mapbex tsaka mental health. Pwede ba isa lang sila? Madami kasi maganda eh. I commend both. Sobrang ang ganda ng use of the platform at the same time yung message that they're trying to convey hits home talaga. And very much timely yung ginagawa nila. And it takes courage to do something like that, to be the face of something like that. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And then yun, since ginamit kong demo kanina, mapaaralan, na tuwa ako na sobrang complete yung school data set sa ibang lugar. Actually, halos lahat ata na tinitingnan ko. Yung Coronadal, medyo random lang yun. Pero nung tiningnan ko yung, when I checked the data for the schools, then OSM, sobrang natuwa ako na complete siya. Just show siguro na if we push and push, kaya naman. Kaya nating gagawin yung ganun. Yung last siguro, pista. Even though medyo part ako nun, pero bigyan niyo sa akin yung pista kasi, di ba? If you can be if you can be proud of something, to think na nagawa yun ng local community nung first time na talagang we went out. Umalis tayo sa Metro Manila and we exceeded, I think, yung expectations of not just us, pero of participants. Sayang lang, sana kung di lang nagka-COVID, natuloy sana yung momentum. Pero yun, yung tatlong yun.
Ngayon yun.
Sige, may time pa. Do you have any OSM or FOSS4G related personal anecdote you can share?
Yun, may nag-commit ako dati na ate. Nag-work pa ako with UT na syempre yung dine-develop namin doon GeoNode. Tapos ang bukang bibig niya lagi, sana ArcGIS na kami sa office para magawa ko na rin yung mga yan. Di ba magaling yun? Sobrang hirap para sa akin na maging civil doon sa time na yon na trying to say na medyo hindi yung tinatry namin, does it really need or does it really have to be, you know, essay ArcGIS, at hindi lang naman yun yung options nyo for doing that. So yun, marami akong ganun. Sometimes, minsan kailangan din mag-speak out na, oops, may ganitong options. Things like that.
Siguro, katulad ng sinasabi nila, kapag alam mo lang gamitin ay martilyo, lahat ng problema ay mukhang pako.
Medyo ganun.
Okay, last question. What OSM/Post4G initiative is keeping you busy right now?
Stamp. Yun lang. Sa COVID, medyo nag-focus ako doon. So if you could visit or use it, sayang naman yung sa naka-up ko na instance sa AWS. Pero yeah, I think doon yun yung pinaka nag-focus ako ngayon. Mostly para to share clean data na galing sa DOH. So since feeling ko yun yung need natin, aside from the map, syempre, aside from the stats, yung allow people to get access to good, clean, granular data na pwede nilang gamitin sa mga analysis nila, and allow them to, make their own, decisions from it. So yeah, somecovidph.com.
Ang galing ng timing. I'm curious, Ben, how much time are you spending on working on Stump COVID project?
Depende. Pag early days, grabe yung momentum ko kasi parang ang daming masayang gawin. Tapos siguro mga 6 to 8 hours. Kasi ang daming gusto kong gawin eh. Nung later on, especially nung times na medyo nakita ko yung not so clean, not so good data na lumalabas, medyo nakaka-dishearten ng konti. So medyo binagal-bagalan ko na. Kasi sayang naman yung mga applications mo kung yung data na pumapasok sa kanya hindi rin ganun kaganda. So kaya ngayon nga yung mas nagfo-focus ako instead of dun sa client-facing apps, dun sa data cleaning talaga ng
Is the DOH responsive to your concerns?
Feeling ko naman, hindi sila nagre-reply sa email, pero parang every 1 or 2 days, nagre-reflect sa changelog nila yung mga rinarant ko. Baka marami rin nagra-rant about it. I don't know.
Okay.
Sila Steph.
That was fun. It was great for us to hear what your insights were about geodata in general and what's keeping you busy and all your other things. Is there anything you'd like to tell us before we end this segment, this interview?
Baka dapat merong map map session for Storm COVID.
Actually, separate session.
Bukas yun pala.
Ayun,
partnership with DJOG, Department of Geography. I'll talk a bit. Mas mahabang rant yun on Stump, on yung data, tsaka kung bakit ko siya ginawa.
Pa-post naman ng link ka na, Ben.
Hanapin ko.
About the details. Di ba may activity tomorrow?
Oo. Hanapin ko. Hindi ko alam. Hindi ko mahanap kung nasaan. Sa Facebook tsaka sa Twitter, doon na rin ata siya. Department of Shinare ng DJOG. If I'm not mistaken. Pero yun, I'll talk more about it there. Pero yung parang summary niya, kasi nainis ako dun sa unang-una nainis ako dun sa dashboard na agol na black and red na mukhang end of the world yung doomsday message na hindi mobile friendly. So yung kaya nag-start talaga yung initiative na yun.
Sino gumawa nung na yun?
DOH.
Okay. Alright, so thank you for sharing your time
Hindi,
with us.
nag-join ako.
Ayan, na-post na yung URL. So before we wrap up tonight's session, let's have our Wi-Fi. Pwede ba?
Screen grab.
So share your
Screen
mugs.
grab.
Tignan natin kung naka-makeup pa si Faye, naka-lipstick pa si Faye tonight. Uy! Akala ko si Faye. Si Ben pala.
Wala makeup.
May makeup ba?
Palit tayo ng
Si Faye.
palit tayo ng
Meron
buhok.
pang bagong si Nico. Is that everyone?
Haba
Ay,
ng
pwede ba
buhok.
mag-plug, Sam?
O sige, habang magpipicture.
Yung isa, sa June 10,
Smile mo na lahat habang nagkakwento si
Smile
Nico.
muna. habang nagpa-plug ako. So, hi guys! Charot. Nagpa-plug lang ako. Yung Faye, handang-handa. Oh, grabe.
Wala pa lang
Okay.
Handang-handa yung Faye. Ayun guys, pa-vlog lang ako mabilis. Nood kayo sa ABS, may show akong bago. Hindi, charot lang. Sa
On air na ba sila?
Charot lang. Wala lang. Sa June 10 po ay meron kaming simple 1-hour webinar ng LGBT safe spaces in the Philippines. So we're inviting several LGBT organizations to teach them how to map or nominate LGBT safe spaces. Ayun lang naman po. It's 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. I'll post na lang po sa OSM Locos ng more details while we're finalizing it.
So this is an online activity? Or
Yes po.
okay. Sige. Sige,
Online.
post na lang ng details sa chat box para everyone will know others of
Yes
the
po. Thank you. Yun lang.
Yun lang. Thank you, Miko. So before we end tonight's session, we're done with the Wi-Fi. So thanks everyone. If you have any feedback about tonight's session, please fill in the survey. Matatapos na yung ating ECQ. Mag-GCQ na tayo. Tignan natin kung itutuloy pa natin to. So feedback would be nice to have para malaman natin yung direction of where we're going with WeMap. Announcements. Nauna na yung announcement ni Miko. So what's happening tomorrow, there's an event with UP Geography Department sila Ben. And sa June, yung Kalamiko. And for next week's WeMap session, wala pa tayong nakapila. So we'll just make the announcements. So that's it. Nag-overtime tayo ng sobra tonight, pero enjoyable. Maraming natutunan. Pasensya na at nasobrahan. So maraming salamat. May mga tanong pa ba?
Ang saya, sana ganito lang palagi. Sabi ni Bato.
Wow! Ibig sabihin palaging si Ben ang teacher natin. Okay,
Bye.
so wala na go ahead. Sorry.
Sabi mo, ang sarap ng buhay.
Ay, ganun ba? Ang sarap ng buhay. Ang ganito palagi.
Oo, ang sarap ng buhay. Okay. So maraming salamat sa oras. Si Senator, ayan, may shout-out pa. Thank you everyone for spending your time with us tonight. The night was really very interesting. I learned a lot of new things about QGIS which I haven't been using for quite a while. So salamat, Ben. Sana maulit. Si RK, alam ko may balak pa na session. Sana matuloy. At I hope to see you again next week. Good night, everyone, and thank you.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Good night,
Bye po.
everyone.
Bye.